Hey, good morning, everyone. We had a little technical difficulties, but we're rocking and rolling right now. So we are live Friday morning. I got the one and only Ian Hoover on. So welcome, Ian.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Yeah. So this is kind of our first time, I guess, in person. We've kind of connected over some emails and texts before, but why don't you introduce yourself to my audience? Who you are, where are you located? I guess.
Yeah, so I am. My name is Ian Hoover. I'm the broker owner of Deacon Hoover Real Estate Advisors. That's my main job on the regular basis. So we have about a little over 50 agents. We're a small independent brokerage in Western Pennsylvania. I believe you've had a couple of our agents on with Jeremy and Liam, and then you have my partner Alex on, I think, at one point in time. And then I'm also a real estate investor. Alex was my mentor back in the day, so I learned a lot from Alex, and I was lucky and blessed to run into him probably at the worst financial point of my life, and he kind of turned it around for me and showed me the way. And that's really all I needed was somebody to kind of point me in the right direction and show me the way. And I was so thankful to run into him, and it's been just running ever since. It's full speed. When you're a real estate investor and you're in the real estate world, there's never a dull moment. I mean, I've negotiated deals on Christmas and New Year's and everything in between. There's no such thing as a vacation, so it's been a wild ride, and I'm just hoping to build a legacy that I can leave to my kids and let them kind of take the horns from there if they want to. They don't really show any interest in it right now, but hopefully at some point.
All right, so I think everyone that is watching and not just listening, they can tell you have a very cool background. So I'm sure this is not your first time doing a podcast or being interviewed, but you do have a YouTube channel. So I do have your YouTube channel in the chat, but you're also streaming live right now. So yeah, go check it out over there. Go subscribe to Ian's channel, please. Show him some support. But yeah, let's dig into this. Like you said, Jeremy and Liam are on the channel quite a bit. A lot of the people in the chat have worked with them, loved the information and knowledge that they bring to the table. Same as Alex. I always joke about him. I call him Yoda. I don't know. I'm not sure if he likes that, but I tell him he's just wisdom, a lot of wisdom. Just like you said, super helpful. But yeah, so what is your thoughts? Maybe are you originally from Pittsburgh?
No, I'm actually not originally from Pittsburgh. I was born in Erie, Pennsylvania. I've lived in Albuquerque and Phoenix and Erie, and then now Pittsburgh. I got moved down to Pittsburgh in 2007 for work. I was actually I built a career at T-Mobile back in the day, and then when I moved from Phoenix back to Erie, T-Mobile didn't have a corporate store back there, so I went to work for an indirect dealer, which is kind of like a franchise of T-Mobile, if you want to look at it that way. And within like 3 months, they made me a district manager and moved me down to Pittsburgh. So I was overseeing like three or four locations, and then the plan was to eventually oversee all of Pittsburgh. And within probably about 3 months of being here in Pittsburgh, I found out my company was going to be shutting down, and so I went back to work for corporate T-Mobile for about 6 more years before, I always say I'm gonna write a book someday. It says, "Getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to me." I got fired, and, that was kind of the kick that I needed to really jumpstart my real estate career and really never look back after that. And, I'm kinda lucky that I got fired. I wish I woulda lost all the stock options and stuff I had coming? No, but, I would say this business will give you a degree from the School of Hard Knocks, and I got that, and I'm really lucky that everything worked out the way that it did, and I wouldn't change anything.
So before we dig into why real estate or how did you get into real estate in Pittsburgh, I do see Greg Bailing tuning in from Instagram. I'm sure you know him. He's also been on the channel. He's done a lot of work on a lot of the people's properties so far, but we love Greg. So hopefully he tunes into the YouTube side. But so like you said, you're in a different field before. I mean, were you always investing in real estate before that, or what put you down this path?
Well, my brother and I, we don't have a very good relationship. But the one thing that he did for me that really changed my life was I was about 16 years old. We grew up really poor, and nobody in my family really knew how to deal with finances and build wealth and stuff like that. And I knew I wanted to, but I didn't know how to do it. And he gave me this book, this dusty book he gave me when he came back from the military called Rich Dad Poor Dad. Probably a little overused at this point, but I read it. It was probably I'm not a big reader. It's one of the few books that I actually physically read in my life from front to back cover. I'm more of an audiobook type of guy. And it just blew my mind that that's how the rich look at things. And from that point on, I knew I wanted to get into some form of real estate at some point in my life. And so when I moved to Pittsburgh when I was 19 years old, I bought my first investment property. It was a $30,000 house in McDonald, PA, which most people don't know where that is, but it's a little tiny country town in the outskirts of Pittsburgh. And that little house, I've probably put in maybe 15, 20 grand to over the years. I still own it. And it's probably worth about $140,000 now. So it kind of shows you the power of owning real estate long term. Yes, it can be a headache and stressful, and it's definitely not a get rich quick scheme. But at the end of the day, it's one of the best things I ever did was buy at a young age, and honestly, it was probably one of my best performing properties I've ever owned, and I had no clue what I was doing. It was right before the mortgage crisis, so I literally paid no money out of my pocket. I actually took a check home from closing. It was stuff that just doesn't happen anymore today. I kind of wish the light bulb would have went off and I would have bought some more, but at least I bought one and got started on that journey.
That's what everyone says, right? Wish they started sooner, wish they bought more. Like you said, Jeremy Taggart is tuning in. He said, "Yep, Deacon Hoover." But I also just want to say, they didn't warn me. You're a Cowboys fan, so if I knew that ahead of time, I wasn't gonna let you on. But Jeremy said, at least you didn't wear your Cowboys hat.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I didn't. I actually did my hair for you, Mark. That's a very rare occurrence. I usually have some sort of hat. I was going to put the Deacon Hoover hat on today, and then I watched Jeremy's video, and he wore the same exact hat, and I was like, I can't do that, so I'll just do my hair today. It's a rare occurrence.
well, you can't wear the Cowboys hat on because we destroyed you this year. So that's the one reason why you couldn't wear
That's
it.
fine. We'll see you in the playoffs.
Oh, okay.
Those,
But yeah,
I look forward to that matchup again.
but yeah, let's dig into it then. Were you? I may have missed it, but did you start investing first or become an agent
Yeah,
first?
yeah. So I bought my first investment property when I was 19. I didn't get my license until 2011. So I was probably about 23, 24 at that point, right around probably the same age Jeremy was when he got his license. And, I just I struggled right off the bat when I got my license. I was kind of trying to do it on the side. And it's not an easy business to do on the side. And I struggled, and which is rare for me because I've always been a good salesman. So I thought, like, oh, I'll be able to sell. But real estate's not really a sales industry. It's more of a service industry, right? So it's you can't force somebody to buy a house. They have to like it, and you can obviously massage some stuff, but you really don't want to force somebody to buy a house either, right? So I didn't really take off until I met Alex. I actually put my license into referral, and then T-Mobile changed our comp plan, and I went from making around six figures to making like 55 grand a year, like overnight. And I was like, I got to make some money off this real estate license. So did a little bit of research. Obviously, AI wasn't a thing back then, so I just Googled and like, how do you make money part time in real estate? And one of the things that kept popping up was leasing apartments for property management companies. So I literally put my resume in at every single property management company in town. Nobody called me back. And my only day off that week was actually my birthday. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, yeah, I have to go out on my birthday and just door knock these property management companies. I'm going to have to. And sure enough, the day before my birthday, I get a phone call from Alex, and he was like, "Hey, I got your resume to a really old email address of ours. Where'd you get that email address from?" I was like, "Your website." And he's like, "Well, why don't you come in and meet with me tomorrow?" And that was my birthday. I swung in and met with him, and he asked for a copy of my ID for some reason. And when he looked at it, he's like, "Is it your birthday today?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Hang on one second." He left, and he brought the whole Mace property management team in, and they brought me a cupcake and sang me happy birthday. And I was like, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. And I think after my first month of leasing, it was over $5,000 I made in 1 month leasing apartments. Alex kind of pulled me into the office, and I thought I was in trouble. I was like, oh, crap, I can't lose this. I just got this. And he's like, I think we might be wasting your talents a little bit. Why don't we get you over to the sales side of things? And I was like, that's what I want to do anyways. And within about a year or so, I was producing more than the rest of the team was, and almost as much as Alex was. And then about a year after that, I think I surpassed Alex, and I just needed somebody to kind of show me the way. And along the way, I was lucky enough to not only have a mentor showing me how to sell real estate, but he also showed me the power of using other people's money and how to do that. And then I started buying rental properties, not only with him, but also on my own, and built up a nice little portfolio, and really never looked back. Now it's obviously the industry is changing a lot, and it's not really what I think is a great market to come in and buy a bunch of rental properties right now. I mean, obviously you can find some decent deals here and there, but it's probably becoming more of a relevant flip market, at least here in Pittsburgh. And so our strategy moving forward is we're going to be expanding to a couple smaller markets nearby where the average sales prices are quite a bit lower, but the rent rates are significantly high for the amount that you're spending. So hoping to get some more 2% rules for us and our clients moving forward. And that's something you haven't heard since probably 2016. And that's kind of our goal in 26 and 27.
Oh, very nice. Yeah. So, yeah, Jeremy's touched on it a few times, like the 2% rule. It was, it was kind of a normal thing before, probably in your market. It's kind of like you're saying, it's getting harder to find. So it does sound like you guys are pivoting, looking to get outside of Pittsburgh, find these little different markets. So yeah, we can dig into that definitely. Did you do like Jeremy? Are you like a 7-time or 8-time house hacker? Have you done all that type of things? And
No, my wife at the time, I don't think she would have let me do that. So we did house hack a little bit, if you want to say fix up the house we lived in, and then moved into another one. But we were single family. We weren't doing multi-families. Jeremy did a great job building a nice little empire there, starting with the house hacks. And I mean, honestly, Jeremy's probably one of the just smartest young men I've met in my life. And I could say young because he's younger than me, but he's super smart. He knows the numbers, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's made too many mistakes in his career. He's been really well. I think his first flip he made like nearly 100 grand on it. Not too many
yeah.
people can say that, right? So
Yeah, he touches on that quite a bit, and I know Liam is doing his first flip, and I haven't heard an update, but I know it went under contract, and it sounds like it's going to end up well. But we don't want to jinx him or anything. But it sounds like he might be on the same path of Jeremy's first flip, so hopefully that works out well for Liam also. But yeah, we can start digging into maybe, like you said, your thoughts on the Pittsburgh real estate, the market, what you see in the future, and even I think we're going to look at some past projects you may have worked on.
yeah, I brought some projects. Now I'm going to fair warn people. I'm not as detailed on keeping old records as Alex is, but I did dig up some stuff for you guys here, and we'll go over that. But my thing with the overall market that we're in right now is you got to really focus on the fact that interest rates are higher than what they were back in COVID and 2019 and all that. And with that being said, and the prices haven't gone down really at all. I mean, there was 2023 was kind of a little bit of a down market, but I mean, it wasn't like a 10% down market. And with the rates going up, you would expect pricing to go down and create more opportunities. It really hasn't. So with that being said, I'm a big, history repeats itself. I'm a big history guy. So I went back and started looking at interest rates and what they've done over time. And if you take out from 2009, which is when the mortgage collapse happened, to now, you take that out of it. I mean, there's really never been much time in the history where we've seen rates below 5%. And actually, the average, including the last 2 decades of really low rates, the average over 100 years is more like 12.5%. So I think that if history repeats itself in the next 5 to 7 years, we're probably going to be creeping up in that 8, 10, 12% range. So that's going to completely cripple the cash flow if the pricing doesn't come down. And you ask yourself, well, why isn't the pricing coming down? Well, that's really easy. It's because we don't have any inventory in Pittsburgh, right? So if you look at how many active listings we had in like 2014, 2015, we had somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 to 20,000 active listings at any given time. Now we're lucky to have 5 to 7,000 active listings at any given time. So, I mean, we're working with about a third of the inventory, and that's why you haven't seen the dip in pricing. And so that's really going to affect the market. And I do think this administration is really trying to keep rates low, because if the rates go up, it's going to go up on our national debt too, which is going to cause a huge problem for our country. So that's the one thing helping us out right now. But at some point, the rates are going to dip back up in those 10, 12% range. And you might want to know the high of interest rates was actually in the 80s. It got up to 24% interest rate. So I don't think it'll ever get that high again, knock on wood, hopefully. But it's definitely something that you have to look at and worry about moving forward, because as a landlord, most of us now, if you're house hacking like Jeremy was, you're getting fixed interest rates and stuff like that. But if you're buying with commercial loans, which is what most people are doing nowadays, excuse me, you're going to be looking at, a 5-year lock at best on those interest rates. So if you get, right now, probably the best rate you can get is around 6.5, 7% on a commercial loan. After that 5 years is up, if the rates are 12%, then, you just doubled your interest payment on those mortgages, right? So it's just something to really keep in mind. And it's something that you have to watch over time. If you're going to get into the rental game right now, or you're going to add to your rental business right now, you have to make sure you have a backup plan for what happens when the rates go up and your payment goes up drastically. And even the people that bought during COVID are going through that problem right now. I bought it a couple properties that got 3.5% commercial rates, was phenomenal, right? And those rate locks are expiring now in 2025 and 2026, and they're going up to 6, 7%. And those properties really aren't going to be cash flowing very well right now. So, because Ian in 2020 was a little greedy and took some cash out, right? And now in 2025, I'm like, why did I do that? I didn't really even need that cash. So those are just things that you have to look at. And trust me, there are people that are going way higher on the loan to value than I was going. I know a couple investors in town that were, had a appraiser that they were in cahoots with, and they were getting 125, 150% appraisal values, so they were over appraising and they're taking as much cash out as they could. They were using, phony leases and stuff to be able to get the refinance numbers to work, and took a ton of cash out. Now that their cash is going away, they're going to be in a lot of problems moving forward. So you want to make sure you don't do things like that, and that you're very cautious. Like, hey, if the rates go up to 10%, will my property still cash flow? If not, is it a property that I can quickly move? Because I can tell you some properties can quickly move. I'm a big fan of single family houses, which not a whole lot of people are in the investment world. My buy box, typically, if I'm buying for myself, is a single family house in a nice neighborhood, with a good yard, a garage, preferably. Nothing like South Side in Pittsburgh is all these quirky houses. I don't like quirky. I want something cookie cutter, nice layout, stuff like that. And those properties are going to be very easy to move at any point, right? But I own what is it, a 15 unit property in Monongahela with some partners, and unfortunately our partnership's not going so well. So we were looking at trying to sell it, and it's probably worth about 750, 800,000 by the numbers, but we can't get anybody who wants to buy it. Probably because of the rates a little bit, but also on top of that, it's in the outskirts of Pittsburgh. It's 45 minutes south of Pittsburgh. So I just think a lot of the bigger investors are like, I don't want to hold an asset in Monongahela, right? So those are things that you have to kind of think of, is like, if the rates go up and I can't afford to hold this asset now, can I move it quickly? And not all assets can be moved very quickly, especially if they're tenant occupied and are something that's difficult to purchase, especially when interest rates go up. And that's when you're going to start seeing a lot of the creative stuff come back, the seller financing and all that good stuff. I'm looking forward to that, because I think it creates some opportunities. But at the same time, I have to analyze my own personal portfolio, and I have to go, well, this doesn't quite make sense. And that's why I'm really urging a lot of our clients to start looking at like DSCR products, because even though you're going to pay 1.5, 2 points higher interest now, if you're like me and you think that rate's going to go up to 10, 12, 15% in the next 7 years, it'd be great to lock that in on a 30-year fixed rate, versus, having something adjust and then you have to maybe dump an asset that you don't want to dump at some point.
I do see Jason Club tuning in from your channel. It says "Go Cowboys," and we got
He's a
Liam.
Washington fan too,
Oh,
so yeah.
we got Liam tuning in. He says finally got here. He says "Go Bills." But yeah, so a lot of great information there. I think one thing maybe you can touch on also is for like new investors or people investing out of state like myself, that reach out to you. What like how do you decide if it's a good fit? Like what should they come prepared if they're going to talk to you, reach out to you, and also what pitfalls should they be aware of in the Pittsburgh market, I guess.
Well, I mean, honestly, the one big mistake I see with a lot of new investors, especially out of town investors that I've talked to over the years, is they come in and they talk cash flow. Oh, I want to get 10% return on investment or 20% cash on. I'm not a big fan of cash on cash. I think it's kind of a phony number that doesn't make sense to me. But I see them coming in and having these really high expectations. Oh, I want to buy 10 properties and quit my job. Probably not going to happen, right? So anytime I talk to those new investors, I think I ground them a lot because I just say like, hey, look, you might get lucky and hit one here or there that's going to cash flow like that, but more than likely long term, this is a hopefully you're cash flowing, you're getting $100 per door or $50 per door net cash flow, and you build that up over time, and then once those properties are paid off, I mean, you think about the power of it. If you own 10 properties that are rented at $1,000 each a month, and once those are paid off in 20 years or 25 years, whatever it is, I mean, there's not too many humans that can't live on that kind of income, right? So, barring some sort of crazy financial collapse of the world, I mean, we should be pretty well off in 25 years, which I'm not even 40 yet. And in 25 years, I'll still hopefully have a lot of life to live. And I mean, a lot of my loans will start getting paid off in the next 10, 12 years. And then I'll be really, really in a good position at that point. So that's usually my recommendation is just, have realistic expectations. Now, hopefully when we get into these other markets, we'll have some options for them to, buy and cash flow a little bit stronger. But honestly, even back when Pittsburgh was more of a cash flow market, to get that percent rule, you were going into some kind of lower income neighborhoods and everything. And a lot of times that number that's on paper doesn't end up being the correct number after you own the property, because lower income tenants tend to not know how to take care of your property. They might not change the furnace filter. They might dump kitty litter down the toilet. They might not let the faucet drip when it gets really cold. They might all the little things that it takes to maintain a property. They might not do that as well as maybe a higher end tenant in a nice neighborhood who's maybe owned a home previously and just went through a divorce or whatever the situation is. So, and that's a rule of thumb, but I mean that's from my experience, it's a pretty accurate rule of thumb. Is if you are buying in a 2% area, it's probably a lower income area, and you're going to go through some headaches there as well. And you're probably not going to get the cash flow you originally expected to get in that market.
And what kind of maybe red flags, I guess, as a new investor, especially coming from out of state, what maybe things that they may not know about the Pittsburgh market, I guess. So like we had an in-person meetup. I wasn't able to attend, but Jack, who is in Pittsburgh, put something together with Jeremy and Liam. And the one thing they always mention is the hills. You kind of hear about it, but actually seeing it or being there in person, that really stood out to them. So anything else you can touch on?
Yeah, I mean, hills definitely can impact it, and where you see it impact the most is like on values, and I see this on a regular basis where, like, it's just I'll use Lincoln Avenue and Bellevue is the one that always comes to mind. One side of the street is flat and level, and you walk right into your house. The other side of the street is not flat and level; it's on a hill, so you have 35 steps to go into your house. So as a new investor, you might look at a property on Lincoln Avenue that's got 35 steps in the front. You're using a comp for something that's flat and level, and you can just walk right in. The other thing in Pittsburgh that you really got to watch out for is the fact that, I mean, these houses, especially if you're in the city limits of Pittsburgh, I mean, a lot of them are chopped up and really weird and awkward, and you're not going to get the high end rents that you're expecting to get, and you're not going to get the high end resale you're expecting to get if you have weird and awkward, right? So it's just one of those things to watch out for. You have to ask yourself, is this a traditional layout that's going to really speak to somebody, or is this something where we're going to have to literally, in one of my properties I lived in back in the day, I had to dismantle my box spring because it wouldn't fit up the stairwell. I had to literally take it apart, all the wood, and roll up the springs and then put it back together. I've never had to do something like that before, and it wasn't fun. It took me like 3 hours, and tenants don't want to have to do stuff like that, right? So those are the things that you want to look out for. And of course, contractors. I mean, God, the red flags that come with contractors. There's some really good contractors in Pittsburgh, but most of us can't afford to use them. And so we're using the two guys in a truck or one guy in a truck type of people. And they can be good for a period of time, and then they go flaky on you. And the one red flag I always say is if you see somebody with a magnet on the side of their vehicle that's a contractor, there's probably a reason for it. They're either A, brand new in business, which can be okay, or B, as soon as they get sued, they rip that magnet off and put the new company magnet back on, right? It's a huge red flag to me. If you see a contractor with a magnet Be very, very cautious.
Great advice. I think another big thing, a lot of the new investors, especially the out-of-state ones, is always the basement situation. Kind of being damp. It's always on the inspection report. Is there any like how would you handle that when working with a client and they see that for the first time?
Well, you got to set expectations that you're probably not going to find many super dry basements in Pittsburgh, right? And there are some inexpensive ways to mitigate that, right? You can put dehumidifiers in the basement. You know, dry lock the walls. Make sure that the downspouts and gutters are handled properly. You'd be surprised how much damage a gutter can cause a property, and those are just things that you have to look for and have to maintain. And one thing that I'm hoping to implement to my portfolio in the near future is like quarterly inspections, right? Because I want to get somebody on my team that can go out and do a complete run around on that property and tell me, oh, the gutters are clogged. Oh, the tenant turned off the dehumidifier. Oh, the furnace filter hadn't been changed in 6 months. You know, like those are things that can really cause a lot of problems for you as a landlord. And if you don't have the system in place to deal with those, or even worse, you're not financially planning for those things, it can really hurt you. I mean, I remember as a new investor, and even still today, for the amount of units I own, I can guarantee you I don't have enough reserves, right? Like you can never have enough reserves in this business. And a lot of brand new investors, they're putting almost all of their capital into that property. And so when that furnace goes bad or that roof starts leaking, it could be a huge, huge issue for them. And so those are things like make sure you have reserves, make sure you plan ahead, watch out for ticking time bomb properties, as I like to call them. So landlords love to sell their properties when the roof's 25 years old, the furnace is 25 years old, the hot water tank's end of life, the appliances are old, and you're like, wow, I'm getting a pretty good deal on this property. But really, you don't realize you're gonna have to sink 40 grand in that property in the next 3 to 5 years, right? So you have to, if you're buying one of those properties, you got to kind of put that money aside and just either A, take care of it right off the bat and have it in your rehab budget, or B, tuck that money away for a rainy day, because that's why that landlord's selling, because it's a ticking time bomb property.
All right, we'll get to a few questions before we dig into some of the slides you want to share. But Steven's asking if you had to start over again in this market, how would you do it?
That's actually a question I get quite a bit. If I had to start back over right now in today's market in Pittsburgh, I'd be looking for those areas that I feel still have some upside to pop. And yes, it's going to come with some headaches and some issues. But one area that I really like right now, and I'm not buying because I don't have the appetite for it, but I think the Hill District is one of the areas in Pittsburgh that just has a lot of upside left. I mean, you can walk the Penguins games, you got a good view of the city. It's still a little rough right now, but there are some decent streets, but you can still buy decent properties that are pretty much move-in ready for under 100 grand. And that's just almost unheard of in the city of Pittsburgh. And I think that particular area is going to probably 5 to 10x in the next 10 to 15 years. And if you're able to, stomach it, buy it, hold on to it, stomach it, and you're going to be happy that you did. It's not going to quite probably get to like the Lawrenceville side of things, but I do think it could end up being a really nice, CB type market in Pittsburgh in the near future. So I'd be looking for little pockets like that to invest in, and then I would really hone in on that and become an expert in that particular market. It's really hard to find deals on market now, so maybe focus on door knocking and finding off market properties, whatever you can do to get an advantage in this market. But that's what I would look at. I would look at places that are still affordable but can really still go up significantly in the near future. I like markets like that over markets like McKees Rocks, where the municipality is way too involved, and they make it really tough on landlords. Like for instance, one of my clients owns a property right in McKees Rocks. He had a commercial storefront that went vacant, and we had a drug rehab company come in and rent the space. And they actually, because they wanted a shorter term lease, they actually paid like 25% higher than what we were listed at. It was just a really good deal for my client. And next thing you know, like 2 weeks later, the mayor of McKees Rocks came and shut down the clinic and said that it was like within so many feet of a school, or gave some ridiculous policy. And we probably could have fought it, but the cost to fight it wasn't worth it. And the company was like, look, we're not trying to get in a fight with a municipality. They ended up moving, I think, to Ambridge instead. But yeah, I mean, it's a municipality can really ruin all your plans and make it really tough on you. And a lot of times we're going to talk about good projects and bad projects moving forward. A lot of my bad projects were ended up being bad because of a municipality, like a code enforcement officer that just made our lives really, really tough and difficult. And it's something that you got to be worried about moving forward. You got to make sure your contractor knows how to deal with the code enforcement officers. You got to make sure that you're communicating with them, because if you kind of ghost them, they're going to take it even worse on you. So those are things you got to look out for. But if I was starting back over, I'd probably would invest everything I can in markets like the Hill District, and just hope and pray that I'm right, and that my crystal ball works.
Nice. BuzzTune, who's in Hawaii, he's also invested in Pittsburgh. But he says, could you talk more about your book, Power of Sales to Build Life-Changing Wealth?
Yeah, so I've been in sales pretty much my whole life. Even I started my first job. I was a paper boy back in the day for the Erie Times up in Erie, Pennsylvania. And part of my job was to, along my route, and knock on doors and try and get other people to sign up with the paper. And I've learned a lot of things over the years, but the power of sales, even if you're not a salesperson, can change your life. I mean, we're talking about negotiating with a car dealer, negotiating any part of your life, trying to get that promotion at work. So that's really, I started that project back during COVID when I was stuck at home and my business was shut down by the government for a couple months. And I finally put it all together and launched it last year. So it was one of the things on my bucket list I want to do, which was write a book. And I'm pretty happy with how it came out. But I do think there's some really great things in there that can help you, not only just in if you're in a sales profession, but just in any profession or any part of life, even just dealing with people. Like if you want to, maybe learn how to communicate better with your significant other, there's going to be tips in that book that can help you out. And I talk about the good things, and I also talk about the bad things. There's a lot of regrets that I have in my life, and I put that in the book too. So you get to kind of see behind the scenes, where Ian made some mistakes, and it's good to look back on your mistakes, because we wouldn't be where we are without them. We learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes.
And I'm unprepared, but I do not have a link. But if people wanted to pick up that book, where can they get it?
It's only on Amazon. I self-published it, but you can go to my website, ianhoover.com, and there's a link to the book. That'd be probably the easiest way to find it. So, because I'm not a best-selling author or anything like that, so you got to dig deep on Amazon. But yeah, and then if you're in Pittsburgh and you're ever in the Carnegie area, swing by. I'd love to sign your book, and thank you for the support.
All right. So yeah, let's dig into, like you said, good, bad projects. Maybe what you want to share to the audience, what you've worked on in the past, and yeah, what you got going on.
Absolutely. Okay. So I just recently did a flip. I'm going to pull this up real quick here. And I will say one of the other tips that I can give the audience is it's important to have good partners. Okay. And that's a huge part of my successes. And actually, there's a big part of my downfalls is partners as well. Right. I always say one of my things that if you heard me talk before, you've heard it probably out of my mouth, is a partnership is a marriage without the bedroom benefits, right? So you really have to know who you're getting into bed with in the partnership realm. And a good partner can be great, and a bad partner, not so great. So it's definitely one of those things that you got to be concerned about here. But let me share my screen here.
And then
There we
for
go.
Hard Hat, he's asking the name of the book. So, Power of Sales to Build Life-Changing Wealth. Hold on, let me share your.
Yeah,
There we
using the
go.
power of sales to build life-changing wealth. But it's actually the title of the book, Short-Term Memory Loss, and that's actually something I used to say back in my T-Mobile days. Is because we get people that T-Mobile didn't used to be the greatest wireless carrier. They were a budget carrier, and you drop a lot of calls. I mean, we would get people coming in just screaming at us on a regular basis, and we were customer service and sales. So I always used to say, like, you got to have short-term memory loss. You got to shut off that bad situation that just happened to you and focus on that next customer coming in, because otherwise, if one bad customer could throw off your whole day, and that's and it happens even worse in real estate. One bad thing can just set you down through a loophole. We're going to talk about one of those bad things today too. But anyways, it helps to really know the market that you're investing in. And I know this area because my partner and I have been investing in this area. And a lot of people, they just hear Monessen and they think, oh, that's a really bad neighborhood, right? And that's something, Monessen's down kind of in that uh, Monongahela, Bell Vernon type area down in southeastern Pennsylvania. And we're in southwestern Pennsylvania, but the southeastern portion of southwestern Pennsylvania. And this particular property came up, and I looked at it and I was like, I don't think that is actually in Monessen, right? So it's not in Monessen, and where you see it as by the school district. So Bell Vernon Area School District is a really good school district down in that area, when Monessen is not a good school district. So this is kind of tucked in it's actually in a neighborhood called Pricedale, which I had never heard of before. So we were able to scoop this thing up because people were kind of valuing it off of Monessen pricing, and really it should have been valued off of Bell Vernon pricing. But when we bought this property, it wasn't a foreclosure. It was owned by some kind of a corporation, and they had it rented out, and then they decided they wanted to sell it. But a nice little backyard. I think the sheds we ended up painting, but I mean, it really wasn't too bad. It looked kind of bad from the photos, and I'm sure if you talk to my partner, who's my also the contractor on the job, he would have told you it was way worse than you think, Ian. But it ended up being a pretty nice project for us here. So he went and looked at it. He said, "Yeah, let's go ahead and move on it." This is the basement right here. Had a nice little fireplace and everything, but you could see it was taking on some water and everything. Those are things that you got to be concerned, especially with a flip. I mean, it's really important to clear up the water issues in the basement, because those things scare away buyers. Knob and tube and water in basements are kind of like the two things that make buyers run away. There were some awkward things about the house too. It was on boiler heat, so we had to get rid of the boiler, put in a forced air system. But yeah, it just needed brought back to life. And the one thing is since COVID, materials and labor, everything's gone up so much that we probably would have been able to do this flip for maybe 40-50K, pre-COVID. Now this is more like a 80,000 type renovation budget. That was the inside of the shed. And we ended up we did do, we ripped out some walls and stuff too. I think I have some. Let me pull this up here. Can you see that? I want to make sure it actually shared.
I do not see it yet. I just
Okay,
still
yeah,
see, yeah,
I still see the MLS.
yeah.
Let me share the right screen here. Let's see. So this is kind of mid construction now. So you saw the before on the MLS. So we got, I don't know what he was taking, some bad plumbing that was corroded out that we had to replace. These are things like you don't see it on the spot, and then you get in there and you're like, oh, holy crap, we got $5,000 in plumbing to do here, right? So we got the water turned on, and it kind of just spit water out everywhere. The basement had like an old drop ceiling down there, and an old bathroom that definitely needed brought back to life. So this is kind of like the first week we started renovations. The kitchen was gnarly. And then after an $80,000 renovation, the project came out really, really nice. So I'm going to pull that up too. Let's go ahead and.
How long did the renovations roughly take?
Well, they took about 4 months, and that's because we were working on a couple projects all at the same time. So that unfortunately was longer than we really shoot for 90 days. That really makes your project more financially stable, right? Because if you're paying hard money cost on a property, you really can't afford to hold that thing for 6, 8 months. It just crushes your bottom line. Even on a small, like this is a lower end flip, right? Our target price was 199 on the back end. We did have to put a new roof on, which I don't think was in the original budget. Um, it had, again, really nice flat level backyard. Uh, but this is how it kind of came out at the end. There's the kitchen there. So it's kind of open. We opened up the dining room there. Everything was new though. There wasn't an inch of this house we didn't touch. There was the finished basement. So you remember the brick fireplace from before. Uh, so it came out really, really nice. Had multiple bathrooms. We ended up getting multiple offers. I think we got 4 offers as soon as 3 or 4 offers when we put it on the market at 199, and it sold just over list price with a very clean inspection. So we ended up netting around $47,000 on this transaction. And it's the little things too. Like, you see that mirror there. I mean, that mirror costs like $50 more than a standard mirror, right? But it's electronic. You can change the colors on it. It's just, I don't know if they call it a smart mirror, but just little touches like that to add a little bit of a spark that make you go, "Ooh, wow, that's really nice," And we did have one agent that couldn't figure out how to turn the mirror off. That was pretty funny, but um, and those are things you deal with real estate agents, right? So we got the Dallas Cowboy colors in the bathroom. Gotta love that. So we got the blue and gray mixture there.
No, surprised you didn't get a lower offer then.
I know, right? Yeah, we maybe we would have went 20 grand over asking if we would have used Pittsburgh Steeler colors or something. But so, anyways, that's the project. It came out really nice. We painted the shed in the back. It was a really solid deal for us. But those are the things, like if you know the market that you're in, you'll be able to find those little pockets where somebody thought, oh, that's Menneson, and they didn't buy it. And instead we're like, oh no, it's actually Bell Vernon, and we can move on this one. And yeah, so we made a pretty decent chunk on it. Honestly, almost nearly 50K on a flip nowadays that wasn't a complete gut is a pretty solid deal. I mean, it was a really good deal. But again, I'm lucky because I have a great partner there. He's a really good quality contractor. He didn't used to be, he used to be kind of, he was good for our rentals, but he's really honed in his skill set, and he really cares, and we work really well together. I wouldn't be able to do stuff like that without him. Like, I would not have been able to do a flip in Bell Vernon. I don't know anybody down. That's about 45 minutes away from me. But I know the market well enough because we've been investing down there for a while that we were able to do that project. And I know you had mentioned you wanted to look at like maybe a project that we made a hiccup on.
Oh,
And
absolutely. I think that
yeah,
people learn
yeah.
more from those, but I think you kind of answered it going over that what you just showed. Hard Hats was asking rent or flip, so sounds like that was a flip.
That was a
Uh,
flip, but we could have rented that too. It probably would have rented for around 1,800 a month. So it would have lost a little bit of money if we had to keep it as a rental, but we could have as a backup plan. But we had plenty of spread there, so we weren't too worried about it. We knew we'd make at least 25, 30 grand there. But
all right. So before we dig into the next deal, I'm going to do a little self promotion though. So want to say what's up to my man Nick, Lead Prairie Huddle. I'll be going live with him tomorrow, with him and Hugo from Stay Winning Money. We'll be talking about Bitcoin, recent news. Bitcoin's all over the place, but yeah, check us out tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific. But yeah, let's dig into the next.
I'm a big
Um,
crypto guy. I'm gonna have to check that stream
oh,
out.
all right. Well. So wait. You're gonna cause a little stir in the chat. You said crypto.
Yeah.
Um, so are you a crypto or are you Bitcoin? So Hyder, like a lot of people wanted to say Bitcoin is its own class, and then there's crypto, right? So.
Well, I
Uh,
think that Bitcoin is kind of like if you invest in stocks, everybody looks at the S&P 500 as kind of the standard, right? And that's what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is the S&P 500. You can throw your money there. You're not going to probably lose it. It's going to be pretty steady and go up over time. It's going to have its ups and downs, but that's Bitcoin. And then, but if you really want to make like a lot of money in crypto, like a lot of money without investing a ton of money. You got to look at the altcoins, and that's really where I'm focused. I own a little bit of Bitcoin, but I'm more focused on altcoins in my investing strategy with crypto. So, but I do a little bit of actually Jason, who is watching on one of my channels. Him and I do a little bit of farming and mining and stuff like that. So we got a little bit of crypto farm action going on. And actually, we started and we have one in Burgettstown. Him and I own a property together where it's got a vacant storefront. And we didn't, and it's got two apartments over top, and we didn't want to pay for heat in the wintertime for that vacant storefront because we're pretty sure it's going to be vacant for a while unless we can rent it out for storage. So what we did was we were installing our crypto mining equipment in there to heat the basement. So yes, they were going to pay money to run the miners, but at least we're making something out of having to pay to heat that space. So some cool things that you can do. And Jason's gotten me even more into crypto since he moved to Pittsburgh. He's one of our agents, and he's really big on crypto. But yeah, I'm going to tune in because I love cryptocurrency. It's a great thing to
Interesting.
invest in.
Maybe we'll get you back on. Maybe I don't need to bring Jeremy on anymore. Then you can replace Jeremy. Nah.
No. Definitely, you want to definitely have Jeremy on.
No,
He's
yeah.
he's the real deal Holyfield. Let me tell you.
Yeah, Jeremy. I'm surprised he talks to me though, because he hasn't beat me in fantasy football yet. So I've
Oh,
every time he invites me, I just keep destroying him. So I'm
taking
surprised.
shots. You know, my fantasy football game has gone downhill significantly. I'm not as good as I used to be.
It's just like the Cowboys.
Maybe
But
that's
yeah.
the problem.
All right, let's take a look at this.
Yeah,
Like
let
you
me
said,
pull up
maybe
the next one here. Let's see. So I'm gonna pull up six. So this is out. I live out in the country. I have some acreage, and I live out in the country. And this is West Virginia border. Um, when we went and looked at it. So let me share the MLS screen real quick here. I've never used this system you used before, so it's taken me a little while to get used to it. But anyways, this is out in a little town called Avella, PA. We bought this property for 52,500. It was a foreclosure, but it really wasn't too bad. Like on the inside, like when you look at the photos, you're like, oh, it's not too bad. But there still wasn't much that we had to touch just about everything. It needed new everything, whether or not it wasn't that bad. It didn't really matter. The other thing is we found like a major termite issue after we bought the property. So that's a learning experience that I had to go through, is that I need to start looking for the little tubes in the basement and stuff. But that kind of set us back. Luckily, my contractor on this project was my partner Josh, who did the flip on the last one I showed you, and I think he pretty much did it at cost to get that termite situation fixed for me. But yeah, I mean, it looked like somebody had started flipping this house and then just stopped. That's kind of what it kind of gave me the vibe of. And then there was a bunch of materials in the garage too, which we were able to use some of the materials in the garage, but I don't think we were able to really recoup the cost of what we wanted to out of it. But anyway, so we bought this property. It actually turned out really nice after everything's said and done, and we should have made let's see here. Is this the one that's sold? No, that's the expired one. We should have made more when we sold this property. Actually, we ended up, I think, breaking even or maybe losing a little bit of money on this one. I'll explain why. Had a really nice yard. We paved the driveway, which I got a really good asphalt guy that I mean, he only charged me $6,000. It's a very long driveway. Um, Cleaned up the front porch, put a new kitchen in. One of the things you can do, save a little bit of money. This is I stole this from Alex Deacon as one of his tricks is if you kind of have a lower end flip, you can get away with not putting a refrigerator in. It'll save you, maybe 1,500, $2,000 on a nice refrigerator. So I did that there because the other thing is people are kind of picky on the refrigerators too, right? So some people want the French door refrigerator. Some people want the standard style. So depends on what you're looking at, but we saved some money there. And then, of course, one of my mistakes I always make is I'm always a little behind on the times when it comes to updating my color schemes and everything. And I was big with the gray color schemes and everything. This is when I started to realize that the grays were out. So this is kind of my first step in, but I still didn't do the light blonde flooring and stuff like that like I should have. But you got to stay up on the trends, and they change very quickly, and they change differently for different areas. If you're in the city of Pittsburgh, it's going to be a different trend than if you're in the outskirts of Pittsburgh in the suburbs. But anyways, it wasn't supposed to be a super high end flip. We knew it was going to be around 200 grand on the back end. So it wasn't anything crazy fancy. Just get it done, get it looking nice and operable. But my mistake on this property ended up coming up during inspection. So, again, out in the country, I'm very used to septic systems. I own a lot of properties with septic systems. And in in this one, I should have gotten the septic system tested, right? But I didn't. The septic system is and was operable. However, it didn't have an appropriate leach field. Okay, for those of you who don't know, a septic system will leach into a part of the grass. It has to be so far away from your water, your well system or your public water system, right? And you have and that leach field has to be flat and level. It can't be hilly, which is very difficult in the city of Pittsburgh, right? And if you had previously used part of your yard as a leach field, you can't use it ever again as a leach field. So you really need a pretty big property that's flat and level to be able to make modifications, right? Well, the buyer ended up hiring a really well known septic company that I've used before in the past out in this area to come take a look, and they found out that it was dumping into one of the streams nearby. So it was leaching into the stream instead of leaching into the ground. And unfortunately, because there had been a prior leach field on the property, there was no place to put a proper leach field in. Okay. Now, what I would have done if I knew better, I now know this, and the good thing that there's good things that come out of every mistake. I promise you. You gotta see it. And actually, Jason was there when I had kind of a little bit of a meltdown on this one because I thought I was going to lose like more like $100,000 on this property, or have to keep it forever, which would have been a bad thing for me. But I ended up getting a really good septic repair guy. And what he told me was, he's like, look, in the future, get it tested ahead of time. Yes, I know. Just like with sewer lines, you got to get them tested ahead of time. He's like, get it tested ahead of time. And then if it's something like this, he's like, even if there's no appropriate leach field, he's like, I can dig it up and I can bury that leach line so deep that it'll pass any dye test, right? Now the ground will be, you could tell that we dug it up, right? So he's like, you might have to hold it for a year or two or three, maybe rent it for a while. And that was our backup plan at the end of this thing was, I could have kept it and I could have held it, done the repair, held it for a couple of years till the ground looked normal again. And then I could have resold it a couple of years down the road. That would have been probably the play to guarantee to make a profit. But honestly, sometimes it's better to cut bait and take a loss, right? So the buyers were still interested, to my surprise. And that's the thing, like people out in these rural areas, they know what septic systems are. They know that this wasn't as big of a deal as it was made out to be. So I just asked them, I was like, what do you want? And they wanted a check outside of closing. They were a young, early 20 something couple, and so I ended up stroking them a check outside of closing for, I think it was either 20 or $25,000. Um, which completely ate up my profit margin on this deal because I had to hold this one for quite a long time too. And I think I either made right around 5 grand or I lost right around 5 grand. But either way, a learning experience is going to save me a lot of time and agony in the future. But you got to do that due diligence. And I catch myself all the time. I don't want to say being lazy, but just almost. I read a book back in the day. It was one of Donald Trump's books before he ran for office, and so I don't get into politics stuff. A lot of people don't like that stuff, but he talked about when he was going, filing for all these bankruptcies, and he was actually negative money to his name essentially, and he walked down the street with his daughter, and he saw a homeless person with a cup of change, and he's like, that guy's got $26 more than I do to my name right now, right? So, and I think what happens is that you get in this mode where you think you can't make a mistake, and let me tell you, no matter how experienced you are, you can make a mistake, and that mistake will cost you, right? So you just got to take a step back and go, God, I gotta pump the brakes here. I have to do my due diligence. I have to get the septic system checked out. I have to get the sewer line checked out before I buy a property. And you know what? If I lose the deal because I asked for 3 days to check out that septic system or that sewer line, then sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't do. That's a Alex Deacon line, by the way. Sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't do. I don't know if he stole it from somebody, but he said it all the time. But anyways, that was definitely, one of my worst recent cases of losing money. COVID caused me some issues too. But that's a whole nother class.
No, I think that's what people like working with Alex and Jeremy folks. They're not always talking about just the wins, right? They're talking about some of the struggles and failures. But we do have a great question. Like I said, Buzz Toon, who is Mikey, he's in Hawaii. He invests in Pittsburgh. He actually went to the in-person meetup, and he's actually considering moving there. Like he
Hmm.
really enjoyed Pittsburgh that much. But it's something on the plate for him. But he does have a question. He says, for your out-of-state investing clients, what do you see in their buying and systems that makes them successful and sets them apart?
I think the biggest thing for out of town people that sets them apart is number one, you gotta set the time aside to come to Pittsburgh, right, and learn the area. And you also have to build your team here, right? So Jeremy and Liam, these guys are a great part of your team because they're going to help you find deals. But the other side of it is you need a contractor, you need an attorney, you need a whole set of team members that can get you through anything, right? And ideally, you need somebody who's going to be boots on the ground outside of a Jeremy or a Liam, right? You need almost like a project manager if you're going to be doing large renovations. And that's one of my big things now. I kind of learned that back in 2021 is like, I don't have the time nor the patience anymore to kind of manage my own projects. So it's very rare that I get into a renovation project, a large renovation project where I don't have either a partner who's doing the renovation or somebody who's going to check up on the project on a regular basis. And I think that's the number one biggest thing is you got to have your team in place. And the other thing is that I see it all the time with out of state investors is that, they're excited, they have energy, they want to invest, but they don't pull the trigger, right? You find a deal. If Jeremy Taggart tells you it's a deal, it's a deal. I mean, I'm just telling you right now, that guy knows real estate. He probably knows it better than I do at this point because I'm more of managing the brokerage versus being out in the field and selling stuff on a regular basis. So if you got a Jeremy or a Liam on your team, or a Jason who's in the chat or whatever, those guys know this industry, they know this market, and that is the if they tell you it's a deal, then you got to pull the trigger. If you don't pull the trigger, then what's the point, right? Like, and honestly, and there's times where I've pulled the trigger and I lost money, but I learned so much from losing that money that it goes to build up my business for the future, right? So don't get the analysis paralysis. If you trust your team, if you got a good team, you trust your team, then when they tell you yes, this is a go, you gotta pull the trigger. And worst case scenario, you got a learning experience. There's no such thing as a home run or a guaranteed home run or a guaranteed profit. Actually, I don't know. Did Alex tell you about his one in Natrona Heights?
More detail. I'm not sure
Okay,
what like specifically.
I didn't watch the entire Alex thing because I've heard Alex talk too many times in my life to be honest with you. But I love him. But yeah, anyways, one of my favorite Alex stories is, and I got a lot of them. Obviously, we've been partners for many years. But one of my favorite Alex Deacon stories is I came into the office one day and I saw him. He was giddy. I've never seen Alex this giddy. He was just he's bumping around. He's having a good time and I was like, what is going on with you? Right. This is when we were in our old office in Heidelberg before we started the real estate brokerage. I was on his team at the time. And he's like, I just got a home run property, home run property. And I was like, I've never heard you say home run property. And he shows me it. And it was this beautiful house. And it was like in the nice area of Natrona Heights and stuff. And he got a good deal on it. And he put this renovation in. And next thing you know, the house didn't sell and he had to end up renting it. He ended up selling it for like a break even, like 5 years down, 4 or 5 years down the road, I think. And he's like, I'll never use that term again. There's no such thing as a home run, right? But I've never seen him giddy like that. And, that's something that you just, you can't learn it until you do it. And, that wasn't a market that he knew all that well, right? Because it's about a 45-minute to an hour drive for him. and he he made a mistake, and I got to learn. I kind of look at Alex as like my father figure in real estate, and I got to learn from his mistakes too, of like, hey, if this thing's an hour away, it might not be a great one. And anytime that I've invested in a property that's far away from me, that I don't have somebody that's close by that's doing the project with me, I've gotten killed on it, right? I mean, I did a flip with a friend of mine a couple years ago in Monroeville, and he was supposed to go every couple of days to check up on the project. He ended up going like every like 3 weeks to check up on the project, and we lost $35,000. I mean, it's you have to be boots on. You have to have boots on the ground. You have to know the market. So those are the big takeaways there. Hopefully for him. So.
Jason says, I believe he's talking about maybe tomorrow's live about Bitcoin. He says, I'll be watching that episode too. I'm not sure if that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, Jason's referring to crypto for sure.
All right. Oh, we got Dion Talk, Financial Freedom, who was one of the keynote speakers at Bigger Pocket this year, tuning in. So thanks, Dion. He was on with me yesterday, live streaming. But Dion, gonna have to get you back on again. After our live yesterday, I got a lot of messages about Kayo's expenses, and people are questioning it. They want to break it down, and they're calling BS on his living expense. So we're gonna have to dig into that a little bit more. Lynn's here. Lynn was recently on Bigger Pockets Rookie, and I'll be live streaming with her also tomorrow, later on in the afternoon. But yeah, this is a great one, Ian. First time on. I think, yeah, if you're up for it, we can do this more often. I think it was a great episode. But yeah, anything
Absolutely.
else? Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap things up? Or you want to talk a little bit
Well,
more about the Pittsburgh market, or?
I mean, honestly, I could tell you another funny Alex story since you know Alex. It's a good
Yes,
one.
more
It's
dirt. Absolutely.
kind of goes into the origin story, right? So I was on his team for about probably almost 5 years, and I was getting my broker's license, and our goal and plan was the entire time was to open our own brokerage. And then I got my broker's license. I'm like, cool, let's do it. Let's open our own brokerage. And he kind of did this like, you know what? I'm getting kind of old. I don't know if I want to, let's just do a team. And I was like, you know what? That's not what I signed up for. This is our plan the whole time. And I was young and ambitious. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to see what else is out there. And I briefly left his team. I went to a local company in town that hired me to build and develop their commercial division. And then we had RSVP'd for Alex's daughter's wedding when she was getting married to her husband Travis, and I didn't want to go. Right, I was like, you know what? Like it's gonna be awkward. I left the team. I'm not, like, and we had young kids at the time, and my wife at the time, she was like, you know what? We have a weekend out of town with no kids. We're going, right? Like there's no getting out of this. And I was like, crap. So unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because I guess it worked out, but I did what I do in a lot of awkward situations. And I just started drinking and having a good time. And to the point where I don't even remember a lot of the end of the night. It was a fun night. We partied, we had a good time. And it was like 2 days later, it was like Memorial Day, I think. And Alex calls me. He's like, "Did you mean what you said at the wedding?" I was like, "What? I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here, but I was like, what the bleep did I say at the wedding?" Right? And he's like, "That we'll still open the brokerage together someday." And I was like, I was really happy where I was at. I mean, I was being paid tremendously well. Being given 100% of my commissions anytime I was really taken care of. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, maybe someday, Alan. He's like, what better day than now? Right. He's like, come meet with me. And I was like, all right, all right, all right. So I'm like, out of respect, because again, I wouldn't be here today without Alex Deacon. As much as I hate to admit that, we have a very joking relationship. But
I
anyway,
try to get that out of him. Because I keep hearing
uh,
that.
he
Jeremy guys, he's funny, and I'm like, I know I can pick it up on him, but I can
He
tell he's
shelters
also,
it when he's in
yeah, yeah,
public, yeah.
yeah.
But you get him in private, you turn the camera off, and it's you guys, yeah, you'll see it. But he, so I get there and I get to the meeting, and I knew exactly what his reservations was before, right? He wanted to just do something small. He didn't want to do all this crazy stuff. So I just go in there. We're gonna be nationwide. We're gonna have thousands of agents. We're gonna blow this thing up. It's gonna be huge, like all this stuff. And he's just like, yep, okay, yep. He just agreed to everything, right? And I was like, at the end of it, I was like, crap, what do I do now? I don't want to do this, right? And so I just was like, okay, well, I want to make X amount of dollars per year. I'm like, and that could be across everything, right? Because we invest in stuff together. And I was like, if I don't make that, then you're going to pay the difference. And he's like, okay. And I was like, well, I guess we're starting a real estate brokerage, right? And that was back in 2017. My first agent I signed on the dot was Jeremy Taggart. He told me to sign him up before our brokerage was even open. And man, were we lucky to get him like so early on. And I mean, just blessed. But that's one of my favorite stories about Alex, because for some reason he felt like he needed to still be in my life, and we wouldn't be here today without that. And I'm really lucky. At the very least, I feel like I've gained some more friends, and we've built a successful business, and it's been a fun and wild ride over the years.
I love that. So I guess maybe my final question then is, how did you guys come up with the name? Why is it Deacon Hoover and not Hoover Deacon, or how did that come out?
Well, we had a bunch of different names, and actually, there's a funny story with our name too I could tell real quick. But we had a bunch of different names, like I don't know, just random stuff that wasn't anything to do with our names. And Alex is like, Ian, he's like, "Look, we're overthinking this." And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, Keller Williams Realty, two people's names. Howard Hanna Realty, two people's names. Caldwell Banker Realty, two people's names. He's like, let's just do our names, right? And I was like, okay. And egotistically wise, I was like, Hoover Deacon for sure, right? But it just didn't sound right. Honestly, it didn't flow right. And so we were like, whose name goes first? And he's like, I don't really care. He's like, but I do think Deacon Hoover sounds better. And I was like, I would agree with that, right? But so we're in our studio right now, DHRE Studios, and originally our website, everything was going to be DHREA, right? Because we're advisors, right? That's a big thing of mine, is like, we're not real estate agents, we're advisors, because Zillow's kind of devaluing the real estate agent. And Alex, probably the best thing that he did for our company, right, was he's like, we should send these logos out and have people like vote on like color scheme, logos, whatever. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So we did. We sent them out to like 100 people we knew, and at least 10% of the people that we sent it to said back in the comment section, at first look, it looks like diarrhea. And we're like, oh, okay. I guess we should drop the A, right? And we dropped
Yeah.
the A, and it's just been
Okay.
DHRE as our abbreviated name. And I mean, I could have rolled with the diarrhea. I would have been like, we shit on the competition, something along those lines. But it was a good catch, and it was a good thing that we did. And I owe Alex for that one, because I don't think I would have done that. I think if I was starting the company on my own, I would have just been like, yep. Yeah, that's good. That's good enough. It's good enough. Let's do it. Let's move forward. We could always change it down the road, which, by the way, it's not easy to change names with the state real estate commission. So
All right, that's a great story. Like I said, we'll get you back on. I think people got a lot of great information. I'll put or reach out to me, anyone, if you want to connect with Ian. If not, he's on YouTube, X, Instagram, but reach out to him. I don't know if you know, it sounds like maybe we should get you out to Vegas with them. I don't know if they told you about that, but
I did just recently hear about Vegas, and I have to wait and see if I have an assistant coach. I coach my son's basketball team. I have to wait because there's going to be a basketball game that weekend. I got to make sure I have an assistant coach. If I have an assistant coach, I'll be in Vegas with you guys.
all right, sounds it's going to be a good time. Thanks for doing this, and yeah.